My name is Gertrude Pinkney. I was born in 1916, making me 93 years old now. And I'm going to tell you a story called Witness to History. I was working in Washington, D.C. at the U.S. Bureau of the Budget Library, which is right next door to the White House. The White House was under construction at the time, and so President Truman was living across the street in the Blair House. One day, while I was at my desk on the 4th floor of the building, I heard something that sounded like backfire. And as I thought about it, there was something different about the sound. So I got up and looked out my window, and I saw Secret Service men running across Pennsylvania, and they shot a man, and then they put a white sheet over him. And I didn't know what it was all about, but later in the day, I learned that 2 Puerto Ricans attempted to assassinate Truman, and one was caught, and the other was shot and died. That was my first experience with attempted assassination. Many years later, when Fred was living in Washington, Irving and I came for a visit, and we were driving our car down Connecticut Avenue. And just as we were passing the Hilton Hotel, quite a bit of activity seemed to go on, and it turned out that Reagan had fallen to the ground, and he was shoved into a limousine. And the other guy, Brady, was shot, and he was ill for a very long time. And we went on our way, and in the papers we read about this and could hardly believe that I had seen 2 attempted assassinations. Later, when I was at something from the Birmingham Temple, some dinner party, I told about these 2 incidents, and everyone there said, "Don't go to Washington while Clinton is president." And of course I didn't. Those were 2 events in history that I witnessed. When we were living in Florida for the summer, we were going over the causeway one morning, and I looked at the sky, and it was very, very strange. And I said to my husband, "Only in Florida could you see a sky like this." A few minutes later, we were at the restaurant ordering our breakfast, and the waitress came over, and she said, "Did you know that the Challenger exploded?" And that was what we had seen in the sky. It looked like white clouds, but they were sort of in a formation, a huge formation, and all gathered together so that it was a big mass that we were looking at. Anyway, learned more about that from the newspaper. We actually didn't know what was going on. And that was my 3rd incident. The 4th incident, we were on vacation in 1967, and when we were in Cincinnati, we decided to call and find out how my mother and father were. So we telephoned, and my mother said, "There's a race riot going on." And when I look out my window, she said, "The sky is lit up like in flames." And so we left that night and drove back to Detroit. The race riots lasted 4 days, I believe. And I don't remember what day it was, but I went to work in the city-county building downtown. And in order to go into the city-county building, only one door was open, and that was guarded by a military man holding a bayonet. And we had to identify ourselves and tell them where we worked, and they checked us off before we were allowed in the building. Well, there wasn't much going on in the building that day, and I took the Woodward Avenue bus going home that night. We were living in Huntington Woods, and when I went out, all of Woodward Avenue was lined up with the National Guard, and each person had a bayonet, and that extended, I think, at least till the city limits, till 8 Mile Road. And I was really frightened. There were a few people on the bus, but I was afraid that they would use those things and start shooting, or anyway, it was quite scary. So I put my head down and kept it under the seat ahead of me almost all the way home. I feel that the world has become a little bit more confusing for my grandchildren and my children because of the economic conditions and the disrespect for human life of people you don't even know. It's hard to know about the future, but you know that unpleasant things are happening all over the world, and it doesn't rattle my belief in humanity because fortunately the world is full of many good deeds, and hopefully they'll outweigh the bad in life.